Okay, y'all, so I got my laptop back up and running. I know y'all don't care. Here's this video. The biggest sluts are the black women in church. Make sure you leave all your comments in the comment section. Voice your opinions, like the video or dislike the video. And I want to hear it all, just like y'all did in the other video. So have fun.
We have an issue where there's this culture of promiscuity. There's this culture of, the slut walk and all of those different type of things where every single woman they encounter is part of the sexual revolution. So they're going to be, a little more free sexually. And that's a nice way of putting it. So when these guys are out here actually looking for marriageable women, they're coming up short. They can't find any, because part of the new age way of thinking is that women should be able to do the things that men have traditionally done. And the sad part is, whenever you hear that, it's always women taking the most negative things of men and then touting that as empowerment. This is what the guys are encountering on a regular basis, where the women, they want to do the same things. They want to have the same equality as men, which is fine, but they don't want the same accountability, the same responsibility. It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, if you're willing to be in the right, have you heard of this? I know you've heard the saying. Have you heard of the saying, dress for the job that you want?
Yeah.
Yeah. The idea is like, you should carry yourself through life like you're where you want to be, because that's how you're going to find that place, essentially, right? I'll hear people say this, like, I don't know where to find conservative women. And then you ask them, well, where are you looking? And they're like, well, I've tried Tinder, I've gone on Bumble, I've gone on Hinge. And it's like, okay, do you go to a church? Like, do you have a community of conservative friends? Have you been involved in any political or community organizing? Because especially in the black community, right? Women are the backbones of all of these things. And if you're looking for conservative people and you're in those areas, you'll find them there. But I feel like people aren't setting themselves up in a conservative lifestyle. If you tell me you're looking for a conservative woman and you're not part of your local church, Jesus, that's the number one place to start, right? Because these are off of churches are where all of your community building activities are going to stem from. Every church has a bulletin board where people are doing things. A lot of churches are involved in community outreach. You can volunteer. You meet a ton of people this way. But people aren't willing to go out and look for it. Yeah, but I feel like in terms of that type of advice, I never hear red pillars talking about that. It's always the sexual marketplace and high value men are these things you have to do to exploit the dynamics of the evolutionary psychology of women so that you can fuck as many women as possible, and that's why you're going to be 1%. And that's the message I hear over and over and over and over and over again, rather than look up your local archdiocese, start going to your church every Sunday, and when church ends, everybody's chatting with each other, because that's what they do. Sometimes the priest or whatever will come out and talk to people, and you just talk to people and you meet friends that way. That's how you organically grow out a group of friends. But I don't hear that advice ever in the manosphere. I never hear that.
I hate the reason why you never hear that in the manosphere is because the biggest hoes usually go to church. They're usually the most promiscuous. They're usually the most trifling. Guys wish it was that easy. They could just go to church and find a good wholesome girl at church. They can't. That's usually where the worst ones are at.
On average, do you think the women in church are going to be more promiscuous, or women that are at a bar or a club?
Bro, they do the same thing.
So every woman everywhere, there are no more conservative women.
They're twerking. They're twerking in church. When you look at the black community, the vast majority of the men don't even go to church anymore. They've checked out, and the reason why they checked out is because of the ridiculousness that's going on in the church. You got the Baptist preacher actually having sex with women in the congregation. You've got women actually twerking in church. You've got the single mothers sitting on the front pew of the church. The church, especially in the black community, I can't speak for the white community, but in the black community, the church is lost, bro. It's done.
Where are all of these single moms coming from?
Where are they coming from?
Yeah.
Well,
if the church is fucked because it's all single moms and people It seems like it takes two to tango, right? Like it can't just be all on black women,
well,
right?
Actually, no, it does. Actually, no, it doesn't take two to tango. And the reason why is because what's going on in the black community is you have a large group of women that are actually having sex with multiple men, having children with multiple men. You actually have twice as many women in the black community have children as the men. Twice as many.
Yeah, but why is that? There are some cities where there's like 3 black women for every 1 man that's not in jail, right? Like, I mean, like, depending on the city that you live in, the availability for some of these black women to even find a guy, the competition is fierce.
There's a number of factors. The competition is very fierce, and there's a number of reasons for that. Number one, we have a small percentage of the population. Black women, last time I checked, outnumbered the men by about 3 or 4 million, something crazy like that. Part of the reason is because of Planned Parenthood. In our community, they actually go to Planned Parenthood to the tune of 367,000 per year. That's 1,000 every day. So that already right there, you have a lower population of just black people in general due to that. In addition to that, there has been an issue with mass incarceration thanks to good old Joe Biden with the 94 crime bill. So you have a lot of brothers that are locked up. So that diminishes the amount of black men as well. In addition to that, you have the cultural problem of black women not being very easy to get along with and not being easy to cohabitate with. So you have black men who seek relationships outside of the black race, outside of the country. With the passport bros, with SYSBM, all of those different things. So then you end up with an even lower amount. And what happens is you have black women out here that are more prone to deal with what people call the Pookies and the Ray Rays. And they'll go out here and they'll have kids, they'll have children with 1, 2, maybe even 3 different men. And the reason why that is because it's been incentivized by our government. Unfortunately, a lot of these women are doing that in order to supplement their lifestyle with welfare, food stamps, child support, all of those different things. There's a bunch of different factors that weigh into that.
Okay, for whatever we want to blame black women for this, black men are just as culpable, right? We can complain about the mass incarceration from the 93 crime bill all we want, but Joe Biden doesn't make somebody sell weed. Joe Biden doesn't make somebody carry an unregistered firearm. Joe Biden doesn't make somebody a gangbanger. Like, these are choices that are still being made, that are being made by black men that fuck over black women in the community. And I think that the cultural problems stem from a lot of the kind of like dysfunction that goes back and forth there. I don't think it's fair to blame black women on everything. Like, we can talk about like food stamps and welfare and all that too, but that exists for black people and white people and every other type of person in the United States. But it seems like the black community has like a special problem with it, right?
Well, hold on. No, when we're talking about that, there are things that are very specific. Okay. One book written by what is her name? Elizabeth Hinton, who I think went to Yale. I think she's a professor in African American studies at either Yale or I think Yale, if I'm not mistaken. She wrote From the War on Poverty to the War on Crime. And she pointed out through her research, right after you get the 65 Voters' Rights Act, you actually have a overhauling of the criminal justice system where they started policing urban areas more heavily. This is right after the Industrial Revolution, where you have black people migrating into the urban centers. You have them policing them more heavily. Okay, you actually have what is the equivalent of today billions of dollars funneled into that criminal program. I forgot the name of it, but the purpose was to create probation officers, all of these different things to create a revolving door in the criminal justice system, which has affected the black community significantly. So yeah, it's wrong for any black man to go out here and commit crimes and do things that he doesn't have any business. But it has been historically proven over and over again that black men have been disproportionately targeted by the criminal justice system, especially with particular crimes. When you have certain narcotics that black men get a harsher sentence for, whereas other groups of men might get a slap on the wrist, or even worse when it comes to unaliving somebody. More often than not, when a white guy goes to jail for unaliving somebody, they end up getting a manslaughter charge as opposed to second degree or whatever degree or whatever. Now, I'm not trying to play the victim Olympics. I'm just stating the facts. Like, any of this can be looked up. The research is out there. Yeah, so it's not not just that black men are just like, oh, we're going to go to prison or whatever. Like, right around the time that they overhauled the welfare program in 65 and 66, you see a rise in single parent households. You had a number of things that occurred that affect that. You had the emergence of the prison industrial complex. You're just coming out of the Vietnam War, which a lot of black men lost their lives to that. And now you have this welfare program where if you have a man in the house, one of the stipulations is you don't qualify for those particular things, which is unfortunate because during that time you had a really serious problem with poverty. So there's a number of factors that play into all of that.
So to preface this, I just will comment as a small jab. I think it's funny that you're citing a woman who is a historian who went to Yale. So historians are important, right?
That is funny. That's hilarious.
Yeah, sure. That book, America on Fire, I think, or the Poverty One or whatever, right? But regardless of that, everything you said might be true, but none of that is black women's fault. I just don't think it's fair to blame black women. Like, you can't blame black women for men being incarcerated. When police are policing these areas, black men are the ones that are engaging in the crime. The black women aren't. And I guess it just feels a little shitty to blame black women when at the end of the day, they're the ones that get saddled with all of the community responsibility. They've got to be the backbone of like all these families, of all these churches, of all these things that are like the only way these communities function are on the backs of these like single black women moms. And then say, well, hold on, let me finish. And then for black men to turn around and say, well, we got policed really heavily. And so, we got caught selling drugs, and that's why you guys are all single moms, and that's why your lives are fucked up. But it's black women's fault for everything that happens in the black community. Okay. I think there's a lot of fault that could be evenly doled out to both sides, is what I'd say. I wouldn't blame black women for it.
Okay, here